Hi there, it is time for Q&A Wednesday where I answer the questions that you may have or that I've had a lot from my clients that are fairly recent. Things that you just want to know about health and fitness. So first of all, I just want to tell you, I don't know everything. You know, I do a lot of research, a lot of studying, but my goal here is just to give you maybe an idea of a direction to go to help answer questions you might have, or to convince you that maybe just taking a step out in faith and trying something new and healthy might be a great option. So keep in mind that, you know, your health is definitely up to you. There's nobody that can tell you what to do. Use some common sense, learn to think intuitively, but I love to talk about health and nutrition and trying to find ways to even if it's just to build a little bit better, healthier life and live a better lifestyle. That's kind of the goal here. So tonight we're going to talk about why it's important to fix your head to fix your body, because I get a lot of people coming in that think it's going to be the opposite. You know, help me to just do better enough. You know, when I lose 30 pounds, I'm going to feel better about myself. Well, that might be true. The problem is, whatever drove you to get to where you are now, whatever unhealthy habits you've picked up, whatever coping skills that you now use by eating your feelings, that's not going to solve it. Getting to where you want to be might be a temporary fix. The problem is you know, you're dealing with the symptoms, but not the problem itself. So case in point, you know, I've heard a lot of stories about bariatric surgery, which honestly is a lifesaver. I totally believe in it. I know people who had great success with it. The downside to that is if they haven't learned the skills of portion control, learning to eat a little bit healthier, you know, whatever psychological reasons that got them to where they are, if they haven't dealt with that and learned the new habits, technically they can go right back to where they were before and gain all that weight that the surgery solved. They can gain all that back, and I've seen it happen. So again, you really have to take the steps in order to get your head straight so that you don't go back to those old habits and those old things, the records that play in your head. Okay, so we're going to talk about that a little bit now. Of course, I always have notes, right? Because that's how I roll. I think the biggest part is, and this part's going to be very, very painful, is you really do have to track down the reasons why you got where you are. So, you know, for me, getting really unhealthy came down to a couple things. Lack of education on how to truly be healthy. You know, they don't teach it in schools, and unfortunately these days it's even worse because they've cut out home ec. You know, health is just so randomly, they really don't teach enough education, don't teach enough life skills. So, you know, in order to get where I needed to go, I had to educate myself. You know, why is sugar bad? Why is processed food unhealthy? It says it's healthy on the box. It's a health food. That does not make it healthy. So again, I had to educate myself. Number two, you know, I definitely used food, especially junk food, as a coping technique. You know, and I still to this day struggle a little bit with when I get a little bit stressed out, I want chocolate. Like, that's kind of my vice. I want that dopamine release from the chemicals, from the sugar. So, you know, we get into these places because of certain things. And for a lot of people, we just get an unhealthy relationship with food. You know, that horrible cycle of, well, I feel bad about myself, so then I go and I binge on junk food, which I temporarily makes me feel good. It's a drug, right? It's an addiction. So I temporarily feel good, and then when that wears off and my blood sugar drops down, I crave more and I'm miserable because I feel guilty. It's a vicious cycle, and it doesn't help anybody. So there's things that happen when you start to choose a healthier lifestyle. You become a different person. Technically, you have to become a different person because you have to create habits that are different than you've done for a long time. So when people ask me how long it took for me to get where I am now, I tell them about 10 years, and they don't get it. But what I have to say is that, you know, it took me 10 years to retrain myself to not only do different things. Of course, now I expect myself to do different things. If I don't go to the gym or if I don't eat healthier, I don't like how I feel. So it took a long time, not only you can't undo 3 decades worth of habits in 3 months. It's taken me much longer than that. Plus, you can't change everything at once. And I've discussed that before, but I think making small choices, changing a couple things at a time is much, much more realistic. So let's talk about maybe some of the reasons why we are where we are. I think, unfortunately, number one, society has created especially in the United States, has created a super unhealthy social aspect of life. Partially because, of course, nobody knows how to cook. That's not even an option for most people these days. So we all buy processed, pre-made meals, or go through the drive-through at fast food, and we do it on a regular basis. Now that I've spent several years eating much, much cleaner, I mean, honestly, I won't go to McDonald's anymore. I went to Taco Bell a couple months ago just because my son wanted it, and even that, I ate a burrito or something, and my body was like, I don't think so. So again, we were so used to really an unhealthy American diet is part of the problem. And of course, the food industry wants us to continue to eat unhealthy because they want to keep making money. So they make hyper palatable foods, and it's become an okay thing. Now, don't get me wrong, wherever you are at in your lifestyle, wherever your body is, you do have to love and respect your body where it's at. I know it's a struggle to not put yourself down and have negative self-talk, but I don't think people realize how hard their bodies work for them. So part of it is just respecting where you are. But definitely, if you want to have a better lifestyle, a healthier lifestyle, have more energy, you're going to have to change some things. And of course, our society is not really going to support you on it. So I have a couple of tips that I'm going to give you in a minute, but let's talk about some of the issues that can happen. I think the biggest one is food addiction. I really think it's more prevalent than people notice because, unfortunately, an addiction comes down to almost a chemical, part of it's the chemical release from processed food. When you eat really quickly digesting sugars, and it's things you wouldn't normally think of, right? Bread turns instantly to sugar in your bloodstream. Some of those highly processed carbs are very high glycemic index, which means it turns to sugar almost immediately in your system, and then your body has to deal with it. So part of that comes down to, it releases dopamine, which is a feel-good chemical, right? Again, same thing. It basically hits the same part of your brain that cocaine actually reacts to. So your body releases dopamine, you feel good, right? That junk food makes you feel good. That's why it's comfort food. But it only happens for so long, and then of course your blood sugar drops, your energy level drops, and you crave more. So because of the hyper palatable foods, the food companies are creating this for you to they want you to be addicted to it, right? Because then you'll buy more. The whole slogan, I bet you can't eat just one. There's a reason behind that. So part of it is that we're addicted to unhealthy, empty calories that really don't benefit us. Even in the ones that say fortified, it's still synthetic fortification. It's not giving your body really the good nutrients and vitamins and minerals that it needs. You really get that through healthy, whole, unprocessed food. So a lot of us have learned from multiple ways, right? Some of us do use food as comfort. And a good portion of my life has been that. Some of us use it as a stress release. We get stressed out, and so we because of that cortisol, we're uptight. We need that feel-good hormone. We want that feel-good. Why do you think drug users use drugs? It's because it allows them to feel differently for a time, and that's technically what food does. It acts like a drug, and unfortunately, unlike a drug which you can technically quit cold turkey and not touch again, we still have to eat. So it's unfeasible to think that we can actually completely cut out food, but we can cut out junk food. So knowing that what my triggers are a big part of being able to stay away from that. I know which foods trigger my inability to stop eating it. Anything that's basically sugar, high fructose corn syrup is really... processed food does not hit the satiation triggers in our bodies that we need. It doesn't have the right parts to it. It doesn't have the right things like meat and potatoes. Those actually can hit satiation triggers. You can only eat so much of it. But you start eating chocolate cake, and man, you can eat the whole cake, right? So again, there's something to do with processed food that becomes addicting. So, dealing with it as a stress release. Food is protection or as a coping skill. People eat because maybe that's the only thing that they have control over. So there's a lot of different issues that can happen, but food addiction honestly is a lot more prevalent than I think we believe it is. If you think of it, if it's something that you just think you cannot live without, you're probably addicted to something. And we'll talk about some ways to deal with that in just a minute. I think another thing that we deal with in especially in our country, but around the world, is body dysmorphia. You know, what society looks at as a perfect body, what they think is perfect and beautiful, really can. And the frustrating thing is, what you see in magazines and on TV, a lot of it isn't real. The stuff you see in magazines, you even know with social media today, in this day and age, with filters and, man, I've seen people that post their pictures. I'm like, dude, I know what you look like. You don't look like that, right? So, you know, it's so unhealthy to reach for something that's unrealistic, but yet that's what we're basing our desire to look like from. You know, that's what we're looking to. So a lot of it also comes down to the lack of self-esteem, because we don't feel like we're perfect, or that we're not enough. Then we lack self-esteem. And that's, or self-confidence, and that's so sad. You know, everybody's beautiful for their own reason. Everybody's unique. And the fact that people hate themselves because they don't feel like they're enough is extremely disconcerting to me. I think a lot of us, I think it's normal to have self-defeating thoughts. The story that we tell ourselves isn't real, but yet, because your mind does not know, your subconscious does not know the difference between real and make-believe, whatever you tell it, it believes. So, you know, even if you as a kid were told that you were a bad child, or maybe, you know, you didn't clean your room and your mother told you you were a pig and you were a pig, that's a horrible thought, right? Like, the vision that I get in my mind is horrible, but you start to believe it at some point, and then we continue to tell ourselves that. Or a situation where somebody who really shouldn't care about their opinion tells you that they don't like you because of whatever, and then you start to believe it. Again, it's just an unhealthy situation, and I don't believe that we're taught the coping skills that we need in this day and age in order to be healthy and vibrant. And it's really sad. Plus, the many eating disorders that exist because of society's view of what's beautiful. Again, everybody is important. Everybody's amazing. Everybody's unique. Everybody is here for a purpose. So, you know, first of all, I think we should all be kind to each other, but it really has created an unhealthy lifestyle for a lot of people. And I'm realizing, I have Netflix, so, you know, I like to get a good laugh. I watch a lot of comedians, and the saddest thing to me is that a lot of the comedians from other countries really kind of bag on us as Americans. They talk about, man, when Americans get fat, they just get really fat, and how horrible that makes me feel, that as a country, people look at us that way. We just need to learn better ways to deal with this. So I'm really sad about that. I personally, to me, it's kind of funny. I'm an introvert. I'm an outgoing introvert, but I'm an introvert, but yet I love people. I really love everyone. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody's in my life, because there's some people that don't belong in my life, but it's important to me that everybody get a fair shake and get a chance to really have a healthy, happy life. I also believe that it comes down to our habits and our education. You know, if we're brought up on, I remember as a kid, I remember frozen meals. Do you guys remember, like, Hungry Man, TV dinners, right? This was before microwaves. Yes, I'm that old. You know, you had the foil on it, you put in there. I mean, the first time I had pre-made meals, you know, fast food became a pretty normal part of our household lifestyle. So growing up didn't necessarily teach me the best nutrition. And honestly, my parents did the best they could. It just wasn't a prevalent thing to know how to eat in a healthy way. So sometimes we have to restructure our education and learn ourselves, which is what I did. You know, I in the beginning, first I learned that strength training was super important. Learning to strength train totally changed my life. It helped me to understand that different types of exercise do different things. So I learned about that, and then I started to learn more about nutrition. In the beginning, it was just energy in, energy out. You have to eat less than you burn. And we're talking about a girl who was 210 pounds, and I am 5'2.5". So that's a lot of weight to put on a small frame. So, but I needed to make some changes, but I had to learn what those had to be. So after I learned a little bit about calories and how they make a difference, I started to learn a little bit more about, you know, the downside of sugar. And so it's taken me a while to, number one, change habits. Again, you know, it took 10 years to undo 3 decades worth of unhealthy habits and create a new lifestyle. So again, it's not going to happen overnight, but that's a portion of it, is learning to change unhealthy patterns recreating a healthier relationship with food, really restructuring our thoughts about how we feel about ourselves, and just know that change is uncomfortable. That's part of it. I think one of my favorite quotes of all time is that you will remain the same until the pain of remaining the same is greater than the pain of change. So, I know a lot of people who are unhappy, unhealthy, sick and tired of being sick and tired, but yet they're not uncomfortable enough to change. I even know people who have had near-death experiences because of their health who still won't make changes in their life. So again, it's up to each person, but you have to be your own advocate. You can't make somebody do that for you, because if there's not an intrinsic motivation, you're not going to stick with it anyway. I also believe that we really need to recreate a deserve level. I know as a mother, a wife, even just a woman in the world today, one of the things I really had to overcome was that I didn't feel like I was good enough. I didn't see myself in a position where I could have a healthy lifestyle. So part of that is teaching our subconscious that is who we are. That's who we want to be. That's who we're going to be. That's what we're working for. Positive affirmations are huge. I know they're hard to work with because you have to actually say them out loud. But if you tell yourself you're already there, your subconscious actually works to bring you there. So if you believe that you deserve to be healthy, if you deserve to maybe burn off 10 pounds of fat. I don't believe in weight loss. I believe in fat loss. You have to believe it there. So that's part of it as well. If you believe that you're that kind of person, you will start to do the things that kind of person does. And that's pretty big. It also really comes down to who you hang around. Even as adults, we can be sabotaged by our friends. Peer pressure is a real thing. Even family peer pressure. Believe it or not, some of the people that you believe that should be your most supportive probably won't be, just because they want you to do well. They just don't want you to do better than they're willing to do. So, surround yourself with people who have like minds, like goals, want to be supportive, and you might have to search those people out. If you go to a gym or if you work with a group or a support network, even on Facebook, you can find them. My town actually has a really great health network of people in all different backgrounds and all different types of exercise and nutrition, but they're supportive of each other. I mean, there's a few negative BS things that go on, but most of us try to stay out of that because I don't do drama. But it's pretty cool that I can hop on, and a lot of people that I follow on Instagram and Facebook are all like saying amazing, great things and very supportive to each other. And I think that's super important to surround yourself. They do say that you become like the 5 closest people to you. So you have to take a good look at the 5 people you spend the most time with. Are they healthy? Are they active? Are they eating good foods? What things do the people around you do it? Shad says one of the toughest critics is family. It really is. Again, some of the people that I thought would be the most supportive in my life weren't and aren't. And that's hard. But I think sometimes maybe they may not be educated enough to it's hard to give up traditions and thought processes. We all grow up with a certain type of view, right? We all have a different value system. And so sometimes it's hard to give that up in order to support the people in our lives that we think that they would help, right? So just some tips in order so does that make sense? Really what I'm trying to say is, whatever got you to this unhealthy part of your life, or whatever is preventing you from making changes, you gotta fix that first. So some ways to do that: number 1, you may have to get some professional help, especially if it's something you have struggled with for a long time. And it could be anything. There are so many reasons that people struggle. A lot of people have had abusive relationships in the past, or maybe some abuse in childhood. Those people, you definitely should get professional help. Those are the people that are trained in order to help give you new coping skills, help guide you through that pain. You deserve to have a better mindset, but somebody's going to have to help you do it. So don't be afraid to reach out for help. You might need to get together with your medical provider and really have a heart-to-heart talk about where you want to go. Maybe have your blood work done. There's a lot that has to happen. And again, you have to be your own advocate. Most doctors won't, unless there's a specific issue, most doctors won't reach out and say, we need to do some testing. But if you say, look, I want to make sure I'm on the right path, I need to know where things are, you might need to get your hormones tested. As we get older, even as women, we start to get a loss of testosterone. If we're perimenopausal, our estrogen's going to drop. Those are things that you need to be checking out. So don't be afraid to get some help. There's also, if you really struggle with maybe an addiction to food, you might need to get some counseling or a support network. Those are things that still exist here. What is it? Overeaters Anonymous. There's multiples. I've seen multiples pop up in my searches on Google. So there's options there, and you need a support network of people to help you get where you need to be, because you're not always going to feel strong and confident about going towards the direction you need to go. So don't be afraid to reach out and the things that you need, and learn those new coping skills. And we just talked about why you can't completely cut out food. You really can and probably should cut out junk, processed food, fast food. Realize that those things are aging you faster than you would like them to. It's fascinating. Most of us want to keep our youth, but yet we're doing all these horrible things to our bodies, maybe even not knowing it, but we need to start doing some prevention and fixing some things in our habits that create that. So like I said, I figured out what my trigger foods. You might have to do some journaling. What sends you off the deep end? What are you craving? And then find ways to deal with it in a different way. A lot of times when I have somebody who says, like, I'm stress eating, we come up with 2 or 3 other options. Now, I know they're not always going to take the better coping skills, the not eating the junk food. But if you have something in place versus, I just don't like how I feel right now, I'm going to shove chocolate in my face. If you have 3 other options, maybe go for a walk, deep breathing, talk to a friend, at least you have something to start with and to reach for, okay? Number 3, educate yourself. If you need to learn more about nutrition, if you don't know how to do strength training, get an experienced trainer. Make sure that you're going to have to get your own education. Again, I know a lot, but I don't know everything. So sometimes I can guide people in the right direction. I'm more of a coach than anything. But sometimes I don't know an answer. So I will go find out. You have to be able to do that for yourself. I found out last year I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Fortunately, I'd already done some research on it, so I actually had a clue as to how to deal with it. But, if you have issues that you're not sure about, learn about it. There is education out there. Now be careful of the education. Make sure that it is quality education. People who actually know what they're talking about. There are websites that are good information. Mayo Clinic. You can go to, I think it's like PubMed. Anyway, there's multiples that are actually published medical literature versus don't go on Instagram and some 22-year-old who has literally never done anything in her life but be a barista. She does not know what a 50-year-old should be doing. So be careful with that. I'm not saying she's not educated, but I'm saying make sure she's educated if you're listening to her. Again, be your own advocate. Don't wait for somebody else to tell you what to do. You got to go do it for you. Don't wait until you now have diabetes, you now have heart disease. You got to be preventative, right? And if something doesn't feel right for you, please use some common sense. Not every option is great for you. Maybe your trainer thinks, hey, you should be doing box jumps, but you have really bad knees. Use some common sense, be intuitive to your own body, and make sure that you are doing what's right for you. Even as a trainer now, I can only do so much. I don't know people's genetic background. My goal is to just guide them in the right direction and hopefully teach them how to exercise correctly. Let's see. We talked about finding people with similar goals. You need to be around those people. I'm telling you, I lost friends when I decided to choose a healthier lifestyle because Melissa's, I don't go out and drink all the time. I'm not saying I never do, but that was an interesting, but that's okay. I have incredible friends who are very similar. Our goals are similar. So that's okay. And I think above and beyond anything else, please remember you're not a failure. For some odd reason, whenever we start this new fitness goal, whether it's a New Year's resolution or whether it's because our doctor told us that we've got to do something, I think that we think it's black and white. We got to be perfect or it's not worth it. I've literally had people see progress, but because they're not all of a sudden a Victoria's Secret model, they give up. That makes zero sense to me. Why go backwards when you feel better, your clothes fit better, you're starting to look, just because you have an unrealistic view of what 3 weeks should take you to, or 3 months even, don't give up. We're all gonna fall down, all of us. I mean, there are still days that I eat my feelings. I don't do it very often, but I do. It's okay to fall down. Reach out to a friend. Keep in touch with your coach. Find people that have something similar that are gonna lift you up, and reach out to them. That's part of the progress. I think if you don't fall down, you're never gonna know your strength. You're never going to, once you have done it, one of the benefits of having been a big girl for a good portion of my past is I have empathy for people when they are struggling, when they hit those obstacles, because I have been there. And so I can either help find ways for them to navigate it, or just even be a big cheerleader and a big support of that. So hopefully that makes sense today. You're going to become a new person. Keep that in mind too, that you may not recognize who you see in the mirror. People treat you different. You have to be psychologically ready for that. There's a lot of, I think the physical part is the easy part. The mental and emotional is the most difficult. And so there's a lot of growth that has to happen there in order for you not only to get to your goal, reach your goal, but also to stay there once you get there. So hopefully that helps. Thank you everybody for jumping on tonight. If you have questions or comments, you can either leave a comment below, or you can direct message me at Facebook Messenger. I do respond. Please make sure that it's not just, hey, but I do respond. Just trying to help us all have a healthier, happier life, and how to support each other. That's all we're here for. So have an incredible day, you guys. And again, Meals with Melissa has moved to Sundays at 10 a.m. And so we'll see you then. Popsicles, sugar-free popsicles this week. We'll see you there. Bye now.